I think that's coming from sort of two locations, both for the DevOps teams and the platform engineers that we talk to. It's developers asking for a lot of AI agents and a lot of different tools.
And we work with primarily platform engineers at Coder too. So we hear that a lot, which is our developers or our C-suite wants us to use these tools. How do we support this?
Yeah, absolutely. And coming from the C-suite is that other like vector of pressure where, developers are asking for the tools from the bottom up, but then also administrators are asking for tools from the top down. And so it ends up being there's pressure for AI literally across your whole SDLC. And that was the first time that I've heard the AI SDLC, but it's interesting to see that much ambition in the market. And it's something that, we're happy to address part of. Is that something that you're seeing a lot of too? You just came back from our other event, getting more advice from...
Yeah. So we had a technical advisory committee in London where we had the top dozen of our customers essentially in the EMEA region. So Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia. So we got a ton of feedback on how they're running into issues with their infrastructure around developer environments and how AI is kind of creating this additional strain on their developer environment. So I mean, in part, we'll get into it, but yeah, there's a lot to cover here. So really excited about that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. So the second event this week is we are doing an interview with one of our customers, Skydio, on how they've operationalized coding agents with a giant monorepo. So we hear a lot that, AI is only good for vibe coding. There's no way to use AI to help you ship code to production. It creates AI slop. There's a bunch of code slop. It's really hard to operationalize AI culturally. And there's a lot of truth to that. But what we're going to learn from the webinar tomorrow is some of the techniques that Skydio has done to make it so that they can actually operationalize AI in a way where it's empowering developers to ship more, ship faster, and without compromising quality by focusing on, really small kind of atomic issues that they want to fix that aren't anything crazy, like changing a button or resizing, like fixing window sizing, anything that like AI is capable of, but it still requires an investment in your culture and your technology to kind of create those processes.
Definitely. Yeah. It's a remarkable thing that he's done with that massive monorepo because it seems, like you said, so many organizations perceive AI as just being incapable of working on those kinds of projects, those kinds of repositories. And it's not something that comes out of the box. I think it takes those kind of techniques that Elliot's employed as well as like organizational practices and policy. So I'm very excited to hear a little bit more about in detail what Elliot's done over there.
Yeah. So that's tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you go to launch.coder.com, you can register for the entire launch week, and you'll see all three of those events on your calendar. I think there's also a way to register for independently, but I'd recommend just going to launch.coder.com. The third thing we're doing is a workshop. So we're talking about a lot of these features in the abstract. We're going to do a couple of demos of this today. We have some recorded videos that we can talk through. We'll talk about that. But the workshop's going to be cool because you can actually log into one of our environments and begin using these tools. So we're giving away free AI tokens. You can use this to kind of iterate and prompt and learn kind of what are real use cases for AI and how do we standardize and secure it in the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of greenfield for us because being a self-hosted company, we've never really owned the platform for people to try it out. So it's cool to be able to provide this playground. I'm very excited to see where people can do during that workshop. So
yeah. So, if you get bored here, we won't be offended. Maybe attend the conversation with one of our customers tomorrow or attend the workshop where you can try it yourself. So cool. With that, we recorded a little bit of a whiteboard video where we explain what Coder Workspaces is. And this is for anyone who is familiar with Coder or maybe not familiar with Coder at all, or, is up to date with our AI roadmap, but wants to see the why behind it. So really excited about this. This is the first time we've done any type of whiteboard video, at least the first time I've done any type of whiteboard video. So what you're looking at now is a picture of our Coder office. We're actually filming this right now. So if you see some cars driving by in the parking lot, that's because I'm sitting kind of right by that big window where the cars are. And in the second picture, it's me kind of doing this whiteboard style video. So really excited to be able to do more live streams and whiteboard videos and stuff like that. And I think it's just a really good way to kind of explain the visuals behind what we're doing.
Absolutely. I feel like as we get more serious and consistent with our messaging, we're getting a lot more serious with our production quality as well.
Yeah.
And it really just, it honestly makes me more proud of the message that we're able to deliver. We have all this set up. So it's really exciting that we're formalizing this. Yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get to the video. Hi, I'm Ben from Coder, and today we're going to be doing a high-level introduction of Coder Workspaces, which is our flagship product for managing developer environments in the enterprise. Before we get into the product, though, I want to spend a little bit of time admiring the problem that Coder Workspaces solves. So in the enterprise, especially for regulated companies, the Fortune 500, and governments, managing developer environments is extremely hard. For starters, there's a number of different personas that we have to consider. So when we think of users of developer environments, we probably first will think of the software engineer. And the software engineer has a number of different requirements in their developer environment. After all, they probably have a monorepo or microservices architecture and a number of different dependencies that they need to manage. However, there are a whole bunch of other people inside of the enterprise that need developer environments as well. For example, data scientists. Data scientists work with Python notebooks, Jupyter, and a number of other large data sets and different dependencies. They also need to access a device. People are using laptops when they work from home. They're using desktops when they come into the office. They may be using something like VDI, which is great from a security perspective, but the developer experience isn't as fantastic. Or in a lot of cases where people have really complex setups and need a lot of control, people are setting up VMs, which are kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum with VDI. They're really flexible and you can do a lot with them, but they're really challenging to manage from an enterprise security and compliance perspective. So there's kind of a fragmentation of the different users that need environments. There's a fragmentation of different devices that you have to support. And from there, these different users need to get their tooling. And tooling could be anything from an editor that people are using. So this could be VS Code. It could be JetBrains' IntelliJ. It could be a Jupyter for Python notebooks. But beyond just the editors, there are also the programming languages. So, and tooling could be anything, or it could be something like Docker for spinning up databases and additional services in your environment. So once people have their devices, they need to get the tooling set up, and then they need access to the network. And this would either be something on-prem or in the cloud. I'll draw a little cloud here. And within the network is stuff like GitHub for source code management, or Jira for managing IT tickets, JFrog for artifact management, some type of internal API or service or gateway, a database, maybe access to a GPU for training, and access to model storage as well. So as you can see, there are a number of different dependencies on the network that developers need access to as well. And all of this has to be vetted by the security team to essentially give something the go-ahead or the check mark. And this is a pain to manage. If you're a platform engineer kind of looking at this landscape from the outside, you'll realize pretty quickly that it's really difficult to know where to start. Do you centralize on the devices that people are using? Do you standardize the tools? How do you make the experience better? As a platform engineer, you're kind of looking at this and wondering, where do you start? And we've been talking a lot about AI recently, and I'd like to talk about how AI kind of makes this problem even more challenging. So whether it's the C-suite or a software engineer, we're seeing a significant increase in demand for AI tools. This could be something as simple as a coding assistant. So this would be something like GitHub Copilot. It could be something built into the editor, like Root Code, which is an extension. Or it could even be something a little bit more advanced. So there's Cursor, which is an AI-powered editor. There's Claude Code, which is a full autonomous agent, as well as SourceGraph AMP, which is another autonomous agent. A lot of these tools end up getting blocked by the security team because it's simply too risky to run these things on the network or the user's local device. If you're running it on the device, an agent may be able to read your emails or assume the identity of the user itself and take actions on that user's behalf. If it's running on the network, it's able to access things that it probably shouldn't, such as the full source code or additional things that maybe a developer should access, but an agent shouldn't. We're seeing there's kind of two unique threat models that are unique for AI. The first one is prompt injection. The idea here is an agent or an AI tool, maybe something like Claude Code, gets access to a prompt that it probably shouldn't have, either from the internet or another malicious source, and ends up doing something dangerous, again, on the network or on someone's device. And as a security team, it can be really challenging to secure agents to prevent them from prompt injection across this kind of fragmented mess of devices and tools. An additional one is MCP supply chain. And the concept here is MCP servers are extremely powerful. It gives AI tools access to things, such as JFrog or Bitbucket or an internal database. However, it's also extremely risky because you only want users accessing approved MCP servers and not doing anything that is extremely risky or downloading things from sites that they shouldn't. We're finding that a lot of these advanced AI tools are getting blocked by enterprise security teams for good reason. It's simply too dangerous to run these things on the network and on people's devices without proper controls and proper automation in place. So now we'll take a look at how Coder Workspaces solves this. So what we're looking at here is a much more simplified and standardized architecture. The first thing we'll notice is that we actually haven't changed the users, devices, and tools that users are using. In fact, everything's still here. What has changed, however, is the actual dependencies and source code have moved off of devices into Coder, which is managed on your own infrastructure. So Coder Workspaces is entirely self-hosted, meaning you can run it on a public cloud, such as AWS, Azure, or GCP, or you could also run it air-gapped on something like an on-prem data center with Kubernetes. Going into Coder, we'll see that there are Terraform-based templates. Each template is essentially a blueprint for workspaces, defining all of the tools and dependencies the developer needs. So this is a very basic example of a template with Python and Docker in it, and developers can still connect from any device and any IDE. In fact, I've added the browser here showing that you can even connect to a Coder workspace through the web browser. So you could use something like a Chromebook or an iPad. Now, this has a lot of different benefits, both for the developer and for the enterprise at large. For the developer, they no longer have to spend months waiting for different tickets and approvals to get set up in an environment. For the enterprise at large, the platform team can kind of create pre-vetted, pre-secured images and templates that people can hop into immediately. There's a significant number of advantages to rolling out AI tooling as well. For starters, a platform engineer can create or modify a template with AI tooling pre-configured. So here we'll make a template. Well, out of the template, a developer can create a workspace. And this can include AI tooling such as something like GitHub Copilot, or an extension for VS Code like root code. And this has a lot of benefits because a developer can essentially click a single button and get an environment pre-configured with AI that's already been pre-vetted by the security team. Another advantage, more on the security side, is these tools are no longer running on people's devices, meaning it can't assume the developer's identity, it can't check the developer's email or do something that the developer would be able to do that's outside of coding. And it also allows you to kind of centrally manage things that the AI agent's able to do. What we're finding, however, is that as organizations want to adopt more complex AI tools, maybe something like Cursor, Claude Code, or Sourcegraph's AMP, that there's a number of additional security requirements at hand. So let's create a workspace. We'll call this workspace 4. And let's add some of these more kind of complicated AI tools in. So we'll add Cursor. We'll add Claude Code. And we'll add Sourcegraph AMP. Now, these AI systems are kind of designed to run unsupervised for long periods of time. Now, these agents are incredibly powerful, meaning they can do things like write code on behalf of the developer, run tests, execute commands in a workspace. And while this is really powerful, a lot of organizations want better visibility and control on what these agents can actually do so they don't do something risky. This week, we're launching a new product called Coder AI Bridge, which is actually built into workspaces. And what AI Bridge does is it'll essentially be a gateway for all AI requests through your network into a model or a model provider. So we'll put the models over here. And the models could be anything from Anthropic's Claude, OpenAI, Amazon Bedrock. What AI Bridge does is essentially all traffic from one of these AI agents has to go through AI Bridge as a gateway so that AI Bridge can do a number of different things. The first thing AI Bridge does is authentication. Because of this, developers don't actually have to manage API tokens and signing into one of these providers. AI Bridge will handle that all for you based on the user's coder identity. The second thing it does is observability. With observability, organizations can monitor what's actually happening and what developers are using. In case of a security incident, a security auditor can go in and figure out what happened. It also helps from an analytics perspective. A lot of these AI tools are extremely expensive, and leaders want to know how much this is costing us and what developers are actually doing with it and who the power users are and what's the ROI of adding additional tooling into Coder. The final thing that AI Bridge helps with is MCP management. And this will allow an organization to centrally configure which MCP servers developers can use, both pre-configuring and pre-authenticating MCP on behalf of the developer so they don't have to do it themselves,
while also allowing people to set policies, preventing what MCP servers can't be used. With MCP management, platform teams can centrally configure which MCP servers developers are using, making it easy for a developer to get into an environment without having to fiddle around with configuration, authentication, and running these MCP servers locally. AI Bridge is this nice kind of gateway layer, ensuring that all traffic that happens to an AI agent goes through Bridge, ensuring that organizations can see visibility with observability, authentication, and MCP management. The final thing we want to solve is prompt injection. And the concept of prompt injection is an agent getting access to a malicious prompt, perhaps from the internet, and kind of that tricking the agent into doing something it shouldn't, such as accessing your network, uploading a token, and compromising the security of your organization. So we partially solved this by taking agents off of devices and moving it into a centralized workspace. But in a lot of cases, agents can still access the internet. So an agent could do some research, read something in Stack Overflow to get additional details on how to solve an issue, and then get prompt injected. And that's something we want to prevent. The final product we're announcing, also built into Coder Workspaces, is called Agent Boundaries. And what Boundaries does is pretty simple. It creates a firewall around each agent, basically ensuring that the agents don't have access to the internet. Users will still be able to access the internet to do research and clone repos and things like that. But you can ensure that the agent can only access trusted sources, therefore being immune to prompt injection. Coder provides enterprises a standard way to run developer environments. Whether it's for a software engineer, an AI agent, a contractor, or a data scientist, a user can quickly provision a workspace based on a Terraform template. And if there's AI tooling involved, the AI traffic is all monitored through Coder Bridge and secured through Coder Boundaries. Thanks for watching this whiteboard demonstration. And now back to the live stream.
Well, cool. We got some feedback that you couldn't see us before, so here we are. I'll just put ourselves right here, and I might move it around a little bit, throughout the show or whatever. But we're here.
Awesome.
Does that show up there?
I'm not seeing it on the presentation.
Huh.
So let's take a quick second, just make sure we can.
Yeah. Are you all
get
able
the
to
AV.
see us? Okay. Still can't see us. Huh. Well, interesting. Well, I can do this, and that'll work. Cool.
We got one feed.
Yeah,
We're
so
back.
on Zoom now you should see our faces, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, you should also be able to see us now. Well, cool. So yeah, it was fun recording that whiteboard video. We're gonna do many more. I think I learned a lot from doing the first one, but it was really cool, like to try to visualize the Coder tech stack as well. And I think being able to have those different props and show what's inside of Coder, what's outside of Coder, what are we trying to solve. It was fun. It was like really good as a product manager to try to like do it in a visual way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great graphical representation, and I'm glad we printed out those magnets for you, because there's really just so many tools cropping up, even in like the developer tooling side. Before we introduce any of these AI agents, there's a swath of things, and so that standardization, orchestration, and centralization has just become more important with the swath of tools that are coming out. And yeah, that was really cool. I really think we should have that as part of our onboarding materials for every employee, just to have like some basis and grounding for why the environment is so important for these AI agents. And it's even more important than maybe developers or human environments have been.
Yeah, so. And that was something I think I would definitely want to touch on more in other videos, which is, to your point, there's a lot of AI tooling out there. If you're building an AI coding agent, it needs somewhere where it's able to run, test, and execute its code. And that environment needs to be set up in a way where the agent can both be secure and productive at the same time. And it's very similar to the same story that we were talking about onboarding a software engineer. It shouldn't take months for a software engineer to onboard with different tickets, and it needs to be done in a secure and productive way. It's the same for agents. It's just the scale at which these environments are being provisioned and managed is kind of increasing drastically.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you have developers not just running their main workspace, but hopefully running 5 or 6 workspaces each with its own AI agent in the background. And you mentioned the importance of both having security and productivity in an environment. And I think centralization is the right way to do that. I also think they go hand in hand. Like we talk about a lot of times with customers, we talk about security for the CISO, but also as a developer, I run AI agents in the background through Coder Tasks, and I need the security just so I have the peace of mind that the agent's not going to do something malicious on my behalf in the background. I'll get chewed out by my boss, Ben Potter, or anything like that. So I think the sense of security is not just for administrators, but it's also for the end developers. It's nice to see that importance gleaming through.
Something that kind of helped me grasp this is kind of the concept of cloud native. And if you think of cloud native, is it for security? Is it for productivity? Or is it a new paradigm of managing things where kind of both of those checkboxes come essentially by default if you're following best practices? So we're trying to do the same thing with developer environments where we're not having to compromise or overly standardize or overly create this Wild West, but instead make it really easy for people to provision an environment on demand, kind of by the platform admin. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, what we have now is a couple of slides just doing a recap of what we discussed on the whiteboard video. I'm going to go through this. Kirby, I'd love some of your commentary as well. But what we're noticing is the way developer environments are managed today, it's a pretty fragmented mess. So as we showed in the whiteboard video, people have their own laptops. They have virtual desktop infrastructure. And in a lot of cases, developers are provisioning their own VMs where they can get a lot of control of what's actually happening on the environment, but there's very little governance involved. And this kind of fragmented approach is only the case for code that's being written, not necessarily code that's being pushed and deployed, because there's a lot of standardized pipelines and cloud native approaches being applied to, within the cloud where environments are actually managed. So we have this fragmentation before developers are actually committing into a source code repository.
Absolutely. It seems like a lot of organizations, once they get to the staging instance, there's a lot of uniformity and a lot of rigor. But past that, it can be fragmentation, not only across organizations, but within individual organizations. We talk to customers and users that have a split of some like self-managed VMs, some like cloud infrastructure, some CI/CD pipelines, some like AI sandboxes.
Yeah.
And as the organization grows, like each team wants their own practices, right? And so we see that fragmentation, not just across the market, but even across individual teams. And so finding some way to maybe create hybrid or just some level of centralization across those teams is becoming super, super important, especially with the demand of AI.
Yeah, so the paradigm that we have had, so this isn't anything new with Coder, is the model where the source code is actually removed from the device. The developer will use a secure browser or a desktop IDE to connect into a Coder environment or a Coder workspace, which is right alongside where you have your Git provider, your CI/CD, and your deployment pipeline. So where a platform team is already investing in standardization around pipelines and cloud, you can take the developer environment layered in there, and there's the security benefits. Source code is off of laptops. Agents aren't running on laptops. We'll get into the agent stuff again, just to kind of cover it in slide form. And everything's kind of standardized in a Coder environment. So this is a way that we are also representing Coder's reference architecture. And what you can see here is there's a control plane. Coder's entirely self-hosted, so you can host Coder on your own Kubernetes cluster. You can host it on AWS. You can host it on-prem, air-gapped, wherever. We don't care. And then workspaces are spun up that contain the dev tools. So that's where the agents run, that's where Python runs, that's where the source code runs. Everything's kind of in these workspace boxes, all defined in your own infrastructure. And then it's co-located on your infrastructure, so if you need to reach out to a model provider or a Git provider or something like that, it's a lot easier from a networking capability versus having to set up these network paths on different devices and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Having everything located in one place where you're not worried about, again, that fragmentation. Like obviously, we at Coder, we want to support the ability to bring all of that fragmentation into a centralized platform and apply that policy. We've actually released some features recently to enable that with the Coder attach. We want to be able to meet that infrastructure topology where it is, but also we need to have this sort of centralization through this architecture, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it's interesting when you introduce these models. There's a lot of external communication that simply just has to happen with a lot of tools today. It seems like the standard is to reach out to these providers or an existing SaaS model provider, because very few organizations are running these models on-prem, and very few organizations are. A lot of organizations also want to introduce MCP tools. We see a lot of that, right? And so we get a ton of external communication. So there's just this natural gap between what models need and the infrastructure that we can control right now. And so, I think that's an interesting part of this, reference architecture slide.
And I guess that's a really good segue to the feature that we have launched called Coder AI Bridge. And it's essentially this bridge or this gateway, if you will, between, the things running within a Coder workspace, specifically AI capabilities, and the public model providers or something like Bedrock. So we talked about it in the video, but the goal of AI Bridge is to kind of manage and proxy AI traffic that's coming from an agent through Bridge into the model provider, gaining additional authentication, visibility, and an MCP management. We have a number of things here, and we're actually really looking for feedback on where we can take Bridge beyond this. There are also a number of different AI and LLM gateways out there. There's Light LLM, there's stuff like Portkey. We wanted to make our own because we've heard from a lot of customers they're dissatisfied with the way that these LLM providers and LLM proxies work specific to developer environments. So a lot of questions people are asking are, how do we manage developer API tokens? How do we centrally manage MCP servers? How do we audit what the agent is doing in case of an incident? How do we begin to get kind of analytics on what developers are actually using these tools for? So we wanted to build it into Coder and have it co-located next to the workspaces.
Yeah, I think it was a very natural decision since we have the obviously the attribution side for the auditing. We have the entire developer identity inside of Coder, and we also have that point of interception since we have an existing control plane, right? So by getting this interception, this model proxy baked into the control plane, it opens up just so many opportunities. And I think when talking about Bridge, it's hard to limit ourselves to just a few things that we're focused on right now, because there are so many opportunities. We want to do, analytics, observability, obviously the authentication that you talked about. MCP, the centralization of MCP management has become super, super important to a lot of these administrators, and doing all of this in a model and agent agnostic way. It's very exciting. But yes, like Ben said, looking for a lot of feedback here. We're very excited to make this. We want to make Bridge easy to deploy, but also very powerful. So
the two kind of things that we typically get when we show people this slide is either I've introduced one AI tool and this isn't a problem yet. So actually, just to spend a little bit of time focusing on that, yet is the key word. We find that as people and developers are asking for additional capabilities, whether it's Cursor, Claude Code, Rue Code, that you can no longer rely on the individual vendor to be able to get the analytics and governance that you need. And you can also you can't necessarily rely on the model either, because maybe developers want to move from Anthropic to GPT, or you want to move on-prem, and you can't kind of let the governance essentially leave with you as you're switching between different models and stuff. So I mean, I don't know, any thoughts there?
No, absolutely. I think it's a very aggressive market right now for, just the new models, the new agents that are coming out. And it still seems like there's not a clear winner in the race. And obviously, as a DevOps lead or as a platform engineer, you want to give your developers the best experience that they're asking for. And so having any sort of lock into one of those individual vendors, yes, the problem is not yet, but developers want the best experience, and you want to provide developers with the best experience. So being able to have an agnostic tool that provides this, even if it's a layer additionally to maybe whatever monitoring or logging you've set up specifically with Anthropic, is always, it's about depth here, right? And just the ability to cover multiple tools. And I think another persona that we see a lot is if they haven't built, or if they have maybe multiple tools that they're trying to orchestrate, they're in process of building this.
Yeah, they may already have, that's what I was going to say, is they may already have an AI gateway.
Right. And sometimes that's great. We see a lot of people have a lot of success with an internal MCP gateway or an internal auditing platform, or maybe even scraping logs from clients themselves. It can be a lot to manage. It just sort of depends on where organizations are in their AI adoption lifecycle.
If you already have an AI gateway, we're also not asking you to use Bridge. You don't have to use it. You can still use workspaces. Agents still need a developer environment to be able to, run tasks in a secure way. So you don't need to use Bridge. We built Bridge kind of out of necessity, where a lot of people said either we're not happy with our AI gateway or we're still evaluating. So Bridge is meant to help our users if they need this level of security rolling out agents. If you don't need it, you don't have to use it, just like any other Coder capability.
Of course.
So, cool. The other thing we talked about is agent boundaries. I really like this graphic, and it kind of shows why we built boundaries in the first place, which is perhaps a controversial take. I don't think so. Agents should have different permissions than developers.
Absolutely.
And agents should have different capabilities than developers. So if you're onboarding a developer and you want the developer to be able to research stuff on Stack Overflow, that's fine. Research ahead, advance your career, learn how to solve that bug, whatever. An agent shouldn't necessarily have unconstrained access to the internet, while it also has access to your private data. So what Agent Boundaries does is essentially creates a firewall to the agent, not for the developer, to prevent it from being able to access network sites that it shouldn't access.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And yes, agents should not have the same permissions that I have. I do not want to open everything that I'm trusted to use to my agent, right? So having a separate set of permissions is just so important. Being able to define that as an administrator, even as a developer. We have a open source sort of predecessor to Boundary that inspired our more enterprise focused tool. And a lot of developers are interested in using that just to have that own sense of security. I as an administrator don't want my developers to introduce these risks, but I also don't want to introduce them for myself. And yeah, I think having that isolation between the agent and between the developer is super important. I think a lot of organizations are already thinking about this with a centralized firewall,
Yeah.
or maybe they're relying on their corporate firewall rather than deploying something specific to agents. Do you want to talk about maybe why Boundary is?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you have an approach that's working for you when it comes to agent security, good for you. By all means, go for it and continue to have agents working and writing code and adding things to your organization. Boundaries was another thing we kind of made out of necessity because we learned from a lot of our users that they don't feel comfortable running agents with the same level of access to the corporate firewall that other users can. So, Agent Boundaries is designed as more of like a process level isolation versus like a global firewall. So that like per process and per kind of threat level, you can set different capabilities. For example, if it's a research agent and it's not able to write anything out, maybe it could be given more permissions. Maybe if it's something working entirely with proprietary data, it should have absolutely no access to the internet as well. So that kind of granularity of configuration and being able to set those different profiles, like you can with Coder and parameters and all that stuff, was kind of one of the design decisions why we decided to make it process level.
Just very natural. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Cool. Well, next, we've talked a lot about these features in the abstract. We've done it in two different ways. We had our whiteboard, we have our slides. Next, I wanted to cut to Dave R. He recorded a video. He works at Coder. He's a solutions architect, and he recorded a video showing how all these features work together and what this kind of looks like inside of the Coder platform. So if you're already familiar with Coder, a lot of the parts of the demo are going to look familiar, but you'll see some kind of new concepts around AI. And if you're not familiar with Coder at all, you'll see Dave spin up a workspace. The dev environment will be pre-configured with tools, and it'll begin using some of these new Coder capabilities.
Awesome.
So let's get to the video.
For this demonstration, I will deploy an agent-enabled workspace through Coder Tasks with an agent boundary. And we already have system prompts built into the template, so the agent will clone a web app, and I will ask it to list the current GitHub issues in the repo. I'll then select one of the issues and ask the agent to resolve it, and once resolved, we'll observe the metrics that AI Bridge provides in our Grafana instance, which has been pre-deployed and pre-configured. So I'll log into Coder using my Okta ID. I will select Tasks, and then I'll prompt it to start the workspace and analyze the issues and list them. Now, while the workspace is spinning up, this is a great moment to highlight that API-driven automation is an increasingly common use case. Tasks such as background jobs, build steps, scheduled maintenance, anything that needs AI compute on demand can be routed through Coder Task via the API. Now the workspace is up and running. I will chat with the AI agent on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you can see that the workspace loaded my memory card game. I can test the game, make sure it still works. As a developer, if I want to view the source code, I've enabled VS Code Web inside the workspace. I can simply click on the tab, view the source code, and even watch the agent change the source code in real time. I also have a file browser available to me if I need to browse the files in the workspace, and I have a terminal window. And here, the agent has listed the issues in the GitHub repo. So now I'm going to ask it to research issue number 1 and then resolve that issue by adding a diamond, red diamond, to the card back. Now, while the agent's working on that task, let's take a look at what AI Bridge is sending to our Grafana instance. So AI Bridge acts as the secure gateway between your AI tools and the LLM. It handles authentication, auditing, MCP tool integrations, and it also feeds all this activity into your observability stack. So from here, I can drill into exactly what my workspace is doing. I can filter down to the precise prompts sent by the workspace or the exact tools it's called. And this is incredibly useful from two perspectives. First, auditing. If there's ever an incident or something unexpected happens, you have full trace of what was executed. And second, analytics. You can understand real usage patterns, see which workflows are actually valuable, and start to get a sense of ROI. Since we expect many users and organizations to interact with Coder not only through the UI but through the API, for example, triggering Coder tasks from GitHub Actions or pipelines or external automation, having this visibility at the bridge is imperative when tasks are being launched programmatically. So let's go back and check our task, and the AI agent has successfully executed the task I've asked it to do. It's now going to create a PR in my repository that will be ready for merge into main. Now the agent has completed the task. It has resolved issue number 1 by adding a red diamond to the card back design. It's also created a PR in the repository that's ready for review and to merge. But there's one more thing. We did deploy a boundary in this. Now this boundary was configured to only allow the agent to pull from a GitHub repository. So let's see what happens when we try to pull from a repository in Bitbucket. And as you can see here, the request was blocked because it was not on the allow list for the agent. So in closing, we've deployed an AI-enabled workspace. The agent boundary has successfully blocked a non-authorized URL. And we've also taken a look at the metrics AI Bridge provides to our Grafana app. And that concludes this demonstration. I appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.
Well, cool. So that is all the features essentially in the sequential order.
Sequentiality.
Sequentiality.
Yeah.
If you haven't, if you've been looking closely too, I'm escaping the sun. So next time we do one of these videos, I think we'll get blinds.
Yeah.
Or something.
We're gonna have to, or we could just put rollers on the chairs so we can move you more gradually throughout the process.
Yeah.
Wheels, couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see how well they play together too. Like as an end-to-end flow, you can see where the developer would come into the platform, create a task predefined by the administrator, then see the security being forced through boundary, and then also see the administrator seeing the audit on that on bridge. Like it's nice to see after the work of the past 6 months, us coming together as a single cohesive AI platform.
Yeah, and it's only going to get, I think, more cohesive as we go on. Like the goal here is that regardless of whatever tool people are using, whether it's Tasks, Claude Code, Mux, which we'll talk about a little bit, you should, as a platform engineer or a developer, have a single pane of glass into what have I been doing with AI, what's it been doing for me, what network requests were allowed, what network requests were blocked, and I don't know, just full visibility into what's happening basically. Because I think that's what a lot of people are lacking right now is, well, what are we actually doing with AI?
Absolutely. No matter, we talk to a lot of different organizations about, in different stages of AI, and no matter how technical they are, how long they've been using AI, there's always a group of developers that just simply isn't using the tools.
Yeah.
And that education problem, just trying to get everybody to not just follow the same practices, but even just try out the tools is such a challenge. So having an understanding of how your best users or most informed users are using AI to then educate the others is super important. It's a desire we see a lot. So
yeah. We have this little overview of what is included in the release, and if you're a Coder user, what you can expect. So for those unfamiliar, exactly a week ago we released this functionality. So it's available, it's documented, it's in our changelog. The first thing is Coder Tasks. We actually haven't talked about Coder Tasks yet, and we'll have some slides for it. But the idea of Coder Tasks is it's an API and CLI as well as a GitHub action for managing coding agents like Claude Code in the background. So if you're a platform engineer or a product manager or maybe even a software engineer who's looking to delegate out some of their work to agents in kind of more of an automated fashion where they may run for a long period of time, you may not be checking in with it at all or only very small intervals, Coder Tasks is great. So we expect that people are going to be using it for the API and automation case a lot, where Claude Code's awesome. We love Claude Code, but we want to run it in more of an automated fashion in Coder environments.
Yeah.
So that's Coder Tasks. That's going generally available. Well, it is generally available as part of the December release. AI Bridge is in beta, so really excited about that. We're aiming on a GA in early February, and AI Bridge is essentially the central management of, auditing, authentication and MCP tooling. So really excited about AI Bridge, as well as agent boundaries. So agent boundaries are now included in our popular modules such as Cloud Code and AMP. And if you go into the Coder registry, you can essentially just enable boundaries right through the registry.
Yeah, absolutely. In Terraform, you can define like basically an allow list of HTTP domains,
Yeah.
and that way with basically I think a total of 8 lines, you can have a secure agent popped into your Coder template.
Yeah,
It's great.
The final thing I'll mention with boundaries, which we haven't exactly said, is the best way to secure an agent is by giving it very little tools and turning off its internet. It's not going to do anything bad, and you can do that with boundaries. So
Yeah.
if you're looking just to experiment with some lightweight agents, maybe a research agent or something just review logs but not ever do any actions, boundaries is a great way to build that out.
Yeah, shut off the internet.
Cool. The final thing I kind of wanted to touch on before we get into like kind of how we're looking at the landscape overall is Coder becoming entirely an AI company? And are we just kind of abandoning the use case where a developer logs in, gets an environment, and they're successful? This is something I really wanted to touch on, and this is something that's really important to me. We're kind of looking at software development in a few different stages, as well as the evolution of our product line in a few different stages. So the first, this is a little, sales lingo-y, so bear with us, is migrate. And migrate's the idea that we have these legacy workstations or laptops, and we need to move source code off of laptops. So essentially everything in migrate can essentially be attributed to, we need remote developer environments. This is a really important use case to us. We're continuing to build roadmap to support the migrate use case. I don't think we have a roadmap slide here, but there are things like shared workspaces, secrets that we're looking forward to adding in 2026 that really benefit the migrate use case.
Absolutely. And this is still a very strong case for us, even like going to conferences where almost a lot of our messaging is focused on AI. We still get a lot of people coming up just looking for great developer environments for humans.
You kind of have to start here too.
Yeah.
Right? If you need to automate the developer environment process, your main customer is software developers. It's not, or data scientists or whatever. It's not agents, right? It comes a little bit later. The next kind of phase that we have is modernize. And the idea here is we already have automated developer environments. We need to roll out AI tooling at a faster rate. And this could be something like Cursor or Copilot. It's not a bunch of autonomous agents running in the background. It's not a developer managing 5 agents at once. It's more a developer starting to use AI tools in their day-to-day work, and the enterprise needs a secure way to roll this out with kind of confidence, as well as it needs to be a productive experience for the developers overall versus just bolting AI into an existing workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is still, I mean, super, super important today, not just for, like you said, not just for like parallelizing agents or thinking about huge background tasks, just getting AI agents out to developers once you have them approved or once you're ready to, or your developers are asking for them. It's a huge hurdle. And having a centralized platform to do that is always going to be important.
Yeah. And then we kind of see people hit a wall here to some extent, where maybe they'd been doing this locally for a period of time. They skipped migrate, for example, and they're running something like Cursor and Copilot, and they're like, this is just too much to manage. Desktop teams are blocking the use of stuff like Cloud Code on the desktop. There's no automation in place, and essentially they hit a wall, and they're like, we can't go into the autonomous stuff. So you'll notice this kind of like purple bar under it, where this is really where we believe remote development environments become essential. We actually don't believe it. We know it. There's no way to run a set of agents running in the background if you don't have automated dev environments, and these certainly aren't going to be running on laptops. And these are specifically autonomous agents that kind of multiply the impact that a single software developer would be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't even imagine running like multiple 5 or 6 Cloud Code sessions on my laptop. I think my laptop, even with a nice MacBook, is simply not able to do that. And not to mention handling, the version control, the different packages, isolating those environments. If you actually want to have those like 3 to 5x developer gains, that's where remote environments become inarguable, right?
Yeah, but the main reason we're showing this slide is if you're not at Multiply, it doesn't mean we're abandoning you as a user of customer, as coder. Our goal is to be that kind of purple line on the bottom where it's like we're actually trying to make remote environments more strategically important. And we believe they are going to get extremely important when it comes to these autonomous agents, whether it's a developer managing them or systems and service accounts and code review agents or whatever. We want to be able to support the full spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. We're staying at all these places, and we also want to make it a smooth ride up through this graph of productivity as well, right? So want to be a part of that at every step of the journey, for sure.
Cool. So I think Kirby, now this is some of your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of hesitation when I start talking to users about managing multiple agents. From developers, obviously, there can be some hesitation around the vibe coding aspect. When you talk about it with platform engineers, there's a lot of hesitation around just providing the infrastructure to do so. Obviously, Coder Workspaces provides that infrastructure, and we are very confident that it's the right platform to orchestrate it. But there's some other things that we have to handle for actually giving a great developer experience on managing multiple agents. First off is context management, obviously, and cost control. Working with, there's a lot of tools around just making it a great experience for parallelizing agents, making sure your agent doesn't run out of context, making sure you have the best models available, making sure you have the best agents available. And it can be very difficult for organizations to roll this out because a lot of tools that provide this today are either individual vendors or SaaS. And so for the enterprise, for our ICP, it can be a significant challenge. And we want to provide a great developer experience, not just for the platform admin, but for the individual users. I think we have a couple slides here.
Yeah, so this is our first approach of solving the kind of multiply stage where developers are managing multiple environments, and we've learned a lot from it, and we're really excited about Coder Tasks. And we've essentially moved Coder Tasks from being this kind of UI first developer tool into this more API first workflow tool that could be for anyone from a platform engineer to a product manager, maybe to a developer who's looking to build really precise automations with AI. So for those of you familiar with Coder Tasks, we call it a UI and API for automating repeatable processes with any coding agent, like Claude Code. So you can still use Claude Code without tasks, but if you want to kind of automate some repeatable process that would generally have a lot of toil, you could do so with Coder Tasks. So here's what it looks like. We have modules in the Coder registry where you can drop in an agent like Claude Code. It'll become compatible with Coder Tasks within your template. And you can interact with the agent through a Coder workspace. So if you need to, at any point, hop into the editor and review its code, or preview its changes, or anything like that, it's powered by a Coder workspace under the hood, but it's kicked off and managed through the Tasks API and UI.
Yeah, and it's really nice. I think a lot of people compare this to their AI CI/CD sort of pipelines, where the platform admin or the cloud admin is defining workflows that developers can just jump in and use without getting this sort of empty canvas problem. It's like we talked about with education earlier. A developer obviously wants a chat and just a ready-to-go workspace where the agent's already there to be productive, but they also need a little bit more prescription sometimes on what the AI agent's good at, and having these tasks that are a lot more directed is a great way to get started and a great way to automate those background tasks. I mean, I see a future where developers are getting started for the day, kicking off 10 tasks in the background, and then maybe focusing on whatever their core task for the day is, and just scaling up kind of in the background, right?
Yeah. Oh, I realized that my face is in the way for the YouTube folks. Okay, cool. I wanted to show a screenshot of how we've been using tasks, because a lot of people are like, well, automation's great. How do we actually use it for something? I think this is one of the best use cases, and it's really simple. It's actually shockingly simple. We have a workflow where when a pull request is submitted, so that's a batch of code that developers want to get approved, we can now label that pull request and ask an agent to ensure the docs are up to date based on this change. And this is a screenshot where the agent went off, it did a little bit of research, and it said, oh, this is an awesome change, but our docs are now out of date, so we need to make a change to the docs. Simple as that. It's not doing anything super fancy. It's not writing features for you, but it's just doing a very kind of purpose-built workflow that an LLM can actually help with. It uses a little bit of reasoning capabilities to be like, this seems like it would impact users. And it'll essentially just tell the engineer, hey, we need to update it. So it's completely API-driven. You apply a label, it leaves a comment, the task runs, but it's powered and secured by a Coder workspace.
Yeah, I love this automation because I feel like we've been struggling with docs drift since I've been at Coder.
Yeah.
And it's such a natural thing. As an engineer, you're focused on making the functionality great, focused on tests, and then it gets merged in, and then we come back, oh, we need docs, and we don't have someone who's constantly focusing on that. So just having this on basically every PR that goes into our code base has been fantastic for just avoiding this sort of drift, not just across our main, but across versions, right? We have to support a variety of different Coder versions. So that means a variety of different docs versions. And this has just been so powerful.
And the cool thing here is this isn't a custom agent. This isn't a custom LLM. This isn't running custom infrastructures is all just running on Coder with a slightly different prompt to ask it to check for the docs. So that's what's pretty cool and excites me. So we're short for time. There are a bunch of other ideal use cases about tasks. We might go a little bit over time. So if you're able to hang on, we'd love to be able to answer some of your questions. But yeah, there's a lot of use cases for tasks for these kind of small, kind of well-defined issues. But now Kirby has something to chat about with Mux.
Yeah, Mux is a brand new tool that we're rolling out right now. We love tasks, and we're very invested in creating a platform for these background jobs, for these dedicated automations. But we're also seeing a need for a more developer-first user experience to manage multiple agents in parallel. Once you've set up Coder for remote workspaces that run agents securely, developers get this sort of light bulb moment where, hey, I could start running 10 at a time. But how do you start to manage those? And Mux is our tool for that. I don't have a video demo here, but this is sort of a screenshot of the UI. It's open source on GitHub. Effectively, we want this UI to be way more interactive, where a developer is managing maybe 5 or 6 unique chats or workspaces at a time, and those can be hooked up to Coder workspace for compute. They can run locally. It can run as like a Coder app. And there's a lot of more developer-centric tools, whereas Tasks is, again, for the platform admin, for those background automations.
Yeah.
Mux is a highly interactive tool for basically just parallelizing agents and scaling up the amount you're able to do. We see, just reinvent, we were talking about this a lot last week, a lot of our developers and a lot of developers that love AI are hungry to use a lot of tokens. So when using Mux, we effectively allow you to really squeeze as much value as possible out of new tools like Opus 4.5 and hopefully create like 6 PRs at a time in the background.
Yeah. I would definitely think of Mux as something for a developer who loves experimenting with AI, loves kicking off and seeing how many sessions they can run, and finding ways to use AI as kind of a lever for them to be able to write more code.
Yeah, absolutely. And really just push the boundary with these tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're a little bit short for time, so I'm actually going to kind of go over this pretty quickly, but we do view these as different things. Mux is a lot more for the developer, for managing multiple agents and developers, managing multiple agents in parallel. Task is more for kind of these background jobs and background agents, more for kind of light DevOps platform engineering use cases, and definitely something we're looking for feedback on.
Absolutely, in both cases.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. So with that, I think we have a little bit of time for questions. So the first question that I'm seeing here is from Matthew, and it says, how do you configure the perimeter or the context that the agent has access to? Do you want to take that one? Or?
Yeah, is this a question pertaining to boundary? Well, I guess we can talk about both context and boundary.
Yeah, we can talk about it overall.
Sweet. Yeah, so with the context, there's a lot of different ways that people do it. The way that we've been doing it with our write Coder on Coder template in our dog food instance is just by preceding the system prompt in the template itself. So if you have a team and a template associated with that team, one great way is just to provide context directly through the Terraform, either through a startup script or through your Claude settings. We also see a lot of people putting context directly in the repo that they're cloning from.
Yeah.
So as far as best practices for context, I think it's best to have team-wide context, allow users to set their own, and then also provide a lot of that in the repo next to the code base the agent's going to be working on, right? What sort of context practices are you seeing in the market?
I think that we're seeing people do it in 2 different ways. The first is they will add context into their repos itself. So Claude has something called skills now, which is pretty cool, where in Claude Code you can add these skills that include like, hey, coding agent, here's how you should write docs in our repo. Here's how you should, and it's basically just knowledge for the agent to do certain things. We're going to talk about this a lot tomorrow with context with Skydio. So I'm actually going to suggest that you attend our chat with Skydio tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about, for a massive monorepo, how they got the right context in place. For security, there's Coder boundaries, and Coder boundaries essentially restricts the internet access that an agent can have. And you can essentially set an allow list of allowed hosts that the agent can go through. So maybe you can say it can only access our internal GitHub, but it can't access any external sources, or it should have no access to the internet overall. So by being able to set an allow list of different domains the agent can access, that's kind of how you create one of those perimeters. The Coder workspace is another perimeter, Bridge is another visibility layer, and down the road we'll be adding policy, so it's another perimeter. So there's a lot of different ways you can add security in, but in a really basic way, we would just suggest adding a boundary, turning off or heavily restricting the internet access.
Yeah. Even outside of that, you have your corporate firewall. I mean, there's a lot of, it's an onion of security, right?
Yeah. One other question we saw is, are the agent workspaces configured differently from human workspaces for access, resource, or GPU requirements? I can take that one. So workspaces at Coder are written in Terraform, as we kind of showed in that whiteboard video. So we don't want to restrict what you can do in an agent workspace versus a human workspace. In fact, we think the best workspaces are ones where humans and agents kind of have environmental consistency built in. So they're basically configured the same, with the caveat that if you want to layer on an agent such as Claude Code or Tasks or Mux or something like that, you can add additional controls specific to that agent or IDE.
Yeah, absolutely. We're finding that it's best. I feel like a developer knows how to communicate best with an agent if it has all the same environment and the tools that they do. Obviously, there's a permissions de-escalation there, but otherwise, yeah, you can. We see a lot of organizations basically migrating their existing coder templates to the new agentic templates by adding an agent. And otherwise, it's a lot of the same paradigms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you weren't able to get your question in, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on. You can go to coder.com/contact to reach us. Actually, we do have a couple of slides with resources. Let me see if I can get those pulled up real quick. Actually, where is this? Cool. So yeah, we have 3 different resources that we can point people to. So if you want to learn more about Coder, you can go to coder.com/docs. Coder is open source, so you can install the community edition for free. If you want to get in chat with our sales team, coder.com/contact. Pretty self-explanatory. We have a very, very smart and intelligent sales and solutions engineering team that can help get you set up, explain kind of where we fit in the stack if you're looking to learn more. And if you want to try Mux, it's on GitHub at github.com/codermux.
Yeah, try it out. We're eager for feedback. We also have a Discord there, and we have a core coder Discord as well. So if you're looking for other ways to get involved.
Yeah, we're pretty easy to reach. So always looking to chat and get feedback. Cool. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. This was great.
Great. Thank y'all.